Welcome back, beautiful souls, to another season of Find Your Lady Tribe. My name is Brenda Ridgely, your host. You know, there's a certain kind of magic that happens when women of a certain age come together. We've weathered some storms, discovered our strengths, and are ready to tap into the wisdom we've accumulated to create our next big thing. This season, we're diving deep into the wellspring of longevity. We'll explore how to nurture our minds, bodies, and spirits so we can not only live longer, but live vibrantly. Whether you're dreaming of traveling, starting a creative pursuit, building an empire, or even saving the world. Yep, that's right, saving the world. This season is your guide to building the foundation for a life filled with purpose, joy, and an unstoppable sense of self. So grab your cup of tea, settle in, and get ready to be inspired. But before we get started, I want to remind you to subscribe. Give us a thumbs up if you're enjoying the show, and share it with your fellow midlife goddesses. Together, let's create a wave of empowered women who are redefining what it means to age gracefully, powerfully, and with a whole lot of Lady Tribe spirit. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Find Your Lady Tribe. This is a place for midlife women to connect and rediscover your passions, your purpose, and your people. And this season is all about longevity, and I'm so excited to be having a great conversation with Laurie Morse today. Laurie is a master health mentor who makes it fun and effortless for spirit-centered women to increase energy and improve health no matter their age. After practicing Chinese medicine for 30 plus years, she'd seen proof that the way to truly heal is by harnessing the natural principles of life force and the elements, making it possible to bring a body, mind, and spirit into high-level alignment to feel good again and enjoy a life they love. She's gathered these secrets for decades from her private practice and an online sacred health academy that serves many. Welcome, Laurie. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Brenda. It's a pleasure. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm fascinated by what you have to share today, the whole topic of life force and chi and getting down to what is all that really, and the Chinese medicine spin is just fabulous. So why don't you just start off by sharing with all of us a little bit more about you and why you do what you do.
Yeah, so I guess the easiest and quickest way to get us there is I was in corporate for 10 years and it was sucking my soul dry. So I would wake up, I would say to myself, I want to wake up and feel passion for what I do, like Mozart and, Manet and all the people that, and Monet, those were the three I would use. And so I read all those books, and you may or may not remember these, but What Color's Your Parachute and How Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow. I had stacks of books like that. And I remember sitting by the pool and I would do all the exercises. And I started realizing it would be around health. I had no idea about, Chinese medicine at the time. This was like literally 35 years ago. And so I worked for health clubs and I would work in health food restaurants. And I was just trying all these other things that were seemingly health related. And one of the perks I got as a manager of health clubs, and it was women's only health clubs, is I would get a massage. And this woman who I loved to have massage me once a month was going to Chinese medicine school. So she would tell me, she was basically telling me all the gossip, who was sleeping with who. So I didn't really pay attention to like acupuncture or Chinese medicine or any of that. But I ended up finding my way to that school, that same school. And that's a fun story, but I don't know if we have time for that. I want people to learn more about Qi, but through my path of Chinese medicine. So the Chinese medical model has this word Qi, and it's simply a Chinese word for life force. And it has taught me, life force has taught me literally everything I know. And I can say that because every particle and wave, if we look at it from a quantum physics perspective, is a particle of light, and this is a life force, and we are made up of all of that. So we're matter, and this is where elements come in, because all of the elements of Earth become the elements of our functioning organ systems, and all of the movement that we have capacity for in this thing that we call a physical body. And so life force is seen and unseen. So the life force we don't see is like the wind. Obviously something is blowing the tree and making the branches sway, but we don't see that. So, but we can't say it doesn't exist either. And that's a similar experience in our bodies. So we have the unseen life force and we have the seen life force, and the seen life force is literally our fingers and our toes and our blood and our tears and our the rain and that kind of thing. So that's where yin and yang comes in, the seen and the unseen aspect of life force. But the thing I want to make sure we are 100% clear about is everything is this energy, everything is this life force, and nobody teaches us how to cultivate it or manage it. And so that's what I became really passionate about. And that's why I'm here now.
I love it. And thank you. I had a similar experience in corporate America.
Okay.
And, that's a big reason why I do what I do as well. So I think it's talking about energy is so just fascinating, because I remember, I don't know, it may have been 10 years ago or whatever, when I first kind of was getting into Abraham Hicks and
Yeah.
I think there was a show called What the Bleep or
Oh
whatever.
yeah. What the bleep do we know? It was a
Do we
movie.
know? Yeah,
Yeah.
basically where it says that we all are just energy, and even, we're all energy particles put together, and each of those cells have their own life force,
Yes. Yeah.
and that we are all connected energetically. We are not
Yes.
a bunch of little individuals in these little shells. We actually are connected vibrationally. So is that
Yes.
what life force is?
Well, okay, so that's a perfect question. So we could say that life force is everything, right? It's the quantum field, it's the intelligent field, and this is how we can say we're connected. The other way we can say we're all connected, because most of us at the human mind level look at certain things going on in the world and go, I'm not one with that,
Right, right.
But if we know that we have a higher presence, like a higher version of ourselves that is actually literally made of light, and that part of ourselves extends itself as these molecules of matter that make up this bubble of biology that we are, and then when we connect with that part of ourselves, that higher part of ourselves, and say, like, I am one with this part of my higher presence, and which means I'm one with all higher presences, right? Then that's a different feeling state. That's a different way of completely being able to embrace that we're one with all of life. And what distinguishes life force is vibration and frequency, right? So, a desk is a different vibration than a finger, which is a different vibration than the wind, right? And so there's this spectrum of frequency and vibration that makes up, in Chinese medicine, it's called it, before there was the two, which we could say is masculine and feminine, there was the one. And then after the two, there is the five, and that's the five elements. And then there are the 10,000 things. It's more than 10,000, but it's the miraculous creation of life that we get to enjoy on planet Earth as of now.
Yeah, we could just really talk for days about
Days.
all
Yeah.
of this, because it is just so massive, and it's just this mind shift. And we could get into the conversation about what things are showing up in your life, and you better check your energy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that would be true for every breath we take. And I'm not saying we have to get that like intense about it. But if something continues to get our energy, what I now know, and this comes from like my healing hat, right, is that it only is coming up because it's ready to be tended. It's ready to be returned to love. It's ready to be untangled and offered to, like the field of energy, which is partly us too. Like we can't be separate from that. When we talk about, like addressing the source of all life, or spirit, or the divine, or the universe, it has to be exquisitely personal as well as universal, right? Because that's constantly an exchange. But when it's ready, we're the healing. True healing is the transformation of energy that's no longer serving into energy that is serving. We tend to, in our programmed beliefs of cultural craziness, think that we're wounded and broken and irreparably so, but that is not true at all. It simply means energy is ready to transform.
Interesting. So maybe I think you just kind of led into my next question, which is, why is life force and chi, or they're the same, so important for health, wellness, and longevity?
Yeah, well, it's the most important thing because how we manage this life force, energy, chi, it doesn't really matter what word we put to it, determines our health. So we know that when people don't eat healthy, don't move their body, don't care about whether they sleep for whatever the needs are of their body, if they don't cultivate social connections, because we know that is an extremely important part of our health and well-being. If people take drugs for 20 years, that is going to drain the chi tank, so to speak. So
Mhm.
all the decisions we make day in and day out, and I'm not saying they have to be perfect, but they have to lean into the best quality we have access to at the time. And of course, that changes over time, especially when we hit midlife, right? I'm writing my third book right now, and it's all about moving through menopause with grace so that we can access this vibrancy and this thriving nature that this time of life is a portal for, but we never get shown how to have that be the case, right? We just sort of crash and burn, and then we don't know how to pick ourselves and our pieces back up. I mean, women do figure that out, but does it have to be so difficult? I don't think so.
Right. Yeah, I think we're all kind of just figuring it out because we are living so much longer and better lives that we're like fed up with it. No, we're not going to put up with this.
Yeah.
Those old
And we're
stories about
meant
menopause.
exactly, and we're meant to like gather the wisdom of the years we've lived, of the life we've lived, and literally springboard from that wisdom into this next rebirth, right?
Mm, love it. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So you touched on it a little bit, but how does our relationship with energy affect our social connections? Because as you know here, that's what I'm so passionate about here is reconnecting to everything, and in particular our social relationships that have become so distant through Zoom, through online
Yeah,
dating,
yeah.
through apps.
Through the pandemic. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, hard
yes.
stuff. Yes, exactly. So I think the first place to start is with being present with our own, like our own connection with ourselves. So we could say that, like, our connection between our head and our heart, between our breath and our matter, because that's the unseen and the seen. And then we can take it out to our connection between just who we are and whatever we're doing and nature, the nature that's all around us, whether we're in an urban or, not urban environment. There are trees, there are plants. Connecting, the practice of connecting with life as it is being unfolded in every moment
For you.
for us is a cultivation of energy, right? And that is very different from the distractions of life, all the shiny, what do they call those shiny whistles,
Shiny objects.
shiny
Yeah,
objects, shiny
yeah, yeah,
objects,
yeah.
yeah, and the squirrels and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like and we're not present. We're not present with ourselves when we're following all those, rabbit holes, and so that actually sucks our energy dry. So just the practice of coming to our center, taking a breath, literally getting in our body. This is a whole practice called being embodied, and feeling into, like, what's happening right in this moment for us, and cultivating that relationship first in order to cultivate social engagements and, work exchanges and that kind of thing. I think is if we leave that out, it it's hard to cultivate deeper relationships when we don't have a depth of our own knowing in ourselves.
Right. So you're saying spend a few minutes on just yourself centering so you're showing up as truly who you are into
Yeah, I'm saying
situations.
spend regular time, at least in the morning, if not throughout the day. I drink a lot of tea, right? So every time I go to the bathroom, I use that time to drop in. I call it sync, soften, and source, meaning connect to source. And that gives me, that's a fuel in and of itself. It's a personal medicine for us all, and it's the foundation from which we can connect with any other part of life. Is that what
Wow.
you were asking?
Well, yes, basically, I'm in relation to going out into the world and being social.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I mean by any other part of life.
Yeah, so having done the practice, whatever the habits, put them into your routine to be sure you're, grounded of sorts. And
Yeah, so that's a good point because there's all kinds of ways that people teach, like how to go networking and how to go out and be social and how to, how to cultivate friendships, right? What I'm saying is that there's nothing wrong with any of those things. And if we start first from this internal centering place and this internal connecting place, we have 70 trillion cells in our body, and every one of those cells has a blueprint for wholeness. And part of that wholeness is connection, right? Like I have this acronym for HEAL that dropped in, I don't know, 25 years ago. So the acronym for HEAL, the H is health, the E is expression, the A is abundance, and the L is for love. And that means to me connection, right?
Yeah.
So these cells are wise and intelligent, and they will guide us if we are in a relationship with it. Like, right, if we connect into this embodied part of the intelligence and wisdom and guidance that every human being carries, but nobody teaches us how to cultivate, right? And
Right.
then when we go out, instead of being anxious and, oh my God, am I going to remember to say this thing to that person? Instead of being anxious, we can just sink into ourselves and let the guidance of our being be more in the forefront than in, tossed in the back, right? And I can tell you with a little bit of practice, that part of ourselves teaches us that it's trustworthy, that words will always be there, that we can look someone in the eye and have a true connection, that our hearts can actually connect and it can feel right and good and authentic, instead of trying to make that be something, like in a forced way.
Yes, yes. And I think this is a really important conversation for us now as midlife women, having come off maybe decades of just kind of the treadmill of life with
Right.
being, diving into our roles as wife, mother, career woman,
Yes.
whatever, and not really, and kind of having lost touch maybe with our
Yes.
core self, right?
That's a really good point. I have found at 63 that the second half of my life has been so much more nourishing and connective and satisfying than I even knew how to think about in the first half of my life. And there's that middle ground between the first half of life and the second half of life where we kind of feel like we're losing ourselves and we're losing our identity. And
Hey, lady. Just wanted to take a moment and interrupt right now in the middle of the show to ask you to subscribe. Yes, press that button right now. This show is all about you, the midlife woman. Let's do this thing together, so join us. Subscribe now.
I know that you have a link that my gift to your listeners is a 5-part mini class on how to. It's the power of grounding. You mentioned grounding earlier. The
Right.
power of connection, the power of embodiment, the power of presence, and the power of purpose. And it's kind of like we put all those things together, like tapping our head and rubbing our belly and walking and chewing gum at the same time. You do one at a time first, and then you put them all together. And if all one ever did is practice that every day, or at least, a time in the morning and then maybe a time or two during the day, like I mentioned, you can use the bathroom as an association to do it, to remind you. It would almost be like that is enough.
Mm.
And even people who are real farther down their spiritual path or their journey, I have observed that they tend to forget this core basic. So no matter where a woman is in their connection and their spiritual, practices, if this is left out, it's like a piece of your foundation of your house being left out.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I can see that now for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So, Laurie, how would you encourage middle-aged women, someone who maybe feels disconnected from herself and her social friendships? And maybe you can give 2 to 3 tips on how she would just get started
Yeah.
getting into these practices or habits to connect with her chi.
Yeah. So I could talk until midnight about these things, but I will keep it to 2 to 3 tips. The first thing is literally practicing what you and I've been talking about, Brenda. And I really encourage the women to go get the free gift, because it will guide, it will step by step give you how to do that practice. And then the other thing that's dropping in is envisioning yourself connecting with the kinds of women or friends or business people that you want to have relationships with. Don't see faces and don't put names to those visions, but just the qualities like open-hearted, you know, they're willing to have a reciprocal exchange. You know, they come from love, you know, whatever's important to you. I'm making all of this up, but you know, get really clear in your heart and your head. Like, what are you looking for? And the reason why is because then it will ring true for you when you meet a person like that. And it's okay if that person doesn't sort of resonate in the ways that you've articulated to yourself. It's okay. It's just, you know, you get to move on to the next person and connect and try in those ways. That would be more like in a networking event, but it's also true for cultivating, you know, new friendships in the second half of life. And the third thing I would say, and I know that the minute this word comes out of my mouth, there's going to be people that bristle. That is to just be willing to have a relationship with your creativity. Not talking about being an artist or a sculptor or a famous photographer with stuff on the walls of the Smithsonian. I'm talking about, because we're being creative all day, and here's why. The life force that we are is automatically creative, which means we are too, right? Because there's no separation from that part of ourselves. So we have a creative impulse no matter what you think. I hear people all the time say, oh, I can't draw a stick figure if my life depends. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just being in this relationship. I have personally found that as I cultivate creativity, it's like it's like a date night for me, or date day or whatever, for me and my life force. And we all know how important date nights are, or date times are, to our friends and our partners and like that. So just be open to that.
Oh, those are great. I love all of them, but in particular, I'm going to go to number 2. I absolutely teach that, to basically sit down and brainstorm and create the friend that you need, the friend that you want to attract. What does she do for you? How does she support you in your life? How would you show up for her? And really, I mean, you can put it down to specific things like what they look like, just for fun. And once you are we are here to create, to your third point, we are here on this planet to be creators.
Yes, 100%.
And we absolutely can design our future, our friendships, and all of that. So that's just fabulous.
And to your point, just one more little piece to that is that if we see it in our mind's eye and we imagine ourselves, not anybody else, but ourselves being centered and peaceful and lighthearted, and whatever the way you want to be, whatever your authenticity is, image yourself and envision yourself walking into circumstances, and that is you, or even leaving a gathering or whatever, and saying to yourself, I feel so good because I stayed true to myself.
Yes, fabulous. So Laurie, you know, I know you have a few books. Why don't you tell us what they are, and also how do we all find you?
Sure. Well, everything that we've talked about is on my main website, which is www.createtohealstudio.com. You can get free stuff there. The only thing that's not on there, my second book is on there, and you can get that for free, or you can get the title and go to Amazon if you'd prefer Kindle or hard copy. But the other book that is not on there is How to Reverse Heart Disease Naturally, a guide for women to not die before her time. So yeah. And then my third book is this, you know, How to Move Through Menopause with Grace. And I'll let you know when it's out. It'll be out in the next couple of months.
We may have to talk again about either of those topics, because again, there's so much to talk about.
To unpack, 100%. Yeah.
And everybody who's listening, you can find in the show notes, I'll have direct links to everything that Laurie just mentioned, and her free gift that I encourage you to check out as well. So gosh, Laurie, I always finish with this question. How do you tribe?
Well, I tribe on everything that we've talked about, but the way it actually plays out, like boots on the ground in life, is walking with girlfriends and having wine having a glass of wine with girlfriends. And I mean, for those who walk with their girlfriends, it's like so much comes out. The connection is deep, and it's spacious, and there's just no limits to how that connection can be cultivated.
Absolutely, yes. And multitasking when you're walking, right? Because you're getting two things done at once.
You're getting movement, exactly. You're getting air, you're getting vitamin D, all the things. Yes.
We love that. Oh my gosh, Laurie, I just really enjoyed speaking with you so much. And thank you for being a part of the tribe now. When 3 or more gather, we are a tribe.
100%. I love it. And thank you for doing what you're doing. It's good work. Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Until next time.